Fantasy Brains!
What's up, Brainiacs? Welcome into another episode of the Fantasy Brains podcast, and we are so excited to bring you this episode today because myself, Matthew Kahan, along with my partner, Charlie Chambers, are going to be doing a full fantasy 2-round rookie mock draft today. So all you Dynasty lovers out there, definitely make sure to tune in for the entire episode today. Before we get started, make sure to follow us on all of our social medias at Leatherbrains, and also make sure to check out our YouTube channel where you can find all of our live streams, videos, player film breakdowns of this rookie class. We've done Omari and Hampton so far, Travion Henderson, Matthew Golden. We got a couple more to come, so definitely go and check that out. Like I said, today we're going to be doing a full 2-round rookie mock draft that's going to be based on the mock draft that I made on a live stream a few days ago, actually. And so we're going to be going off that. We have a full 3-round mock draft for that. So with that, we're going to be making the picks based on the hypothetical situation that this is what happens in real life. So we're just going to be based off that. Charlie's going to put that draft on the screen so you guys can see where we're going and what our mindset is on these picks. I'm going to be taking the odds. Charlie's going to be taking the evens. Charlie, you got anything to add before we're going to start here?
Let's get right into it. This is going to be fun. The draft's on the board right now, so you guys can see Kahan's mock draft of 3 rounds. And as we go, we're going to be putting the picks up on the board as well.
Yeah, definitely make sure to go check out that video. A lot of thought into that mock draft. I think it was a pretty good one, but let's start off here with number 1 overall. This is a clear pick here, Ashton Jeanty, who got drafted to the Chicago Bears in this mock. Jeanty is to land with the Bears. That is a star-studded situation for him. He lands in a great offense with Ben Johnson, who led Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery in his scheme to both be productive fantasy running backs. So Ashton Jeanty with a 3-down workload in this Bears offense that's led by Caleb Williams. You have a bunch of new offensive line pieces with Joe Thuney and Drew Dahlman and Jonah Jackson. This is a great pick, and I think no matter where Jeanty goes, whether it's the Raiders or the Bears or the Saints or whatever team it's going to be, he's by far the best player in this draft, and he's going to have top 10 draft capital. So he's got to be the pick here at number 1.
This is an awesome landing spot, too, for Jeanty. I think this might be one of the best landing spots for him in the whole draft. I'm not worried about DeAndre Swift or Roschon Johnson. They might be getting involved a little bit, but that is not going to harm Jeanty's fantasy value in any way. He's going to be instantly extremely involved in this offense. Ben Johnson is going to use him. He's an asset. They can't take him off the field. He had so many carries at Boise State that it's like he can handle the workload in the NFL. I'm not worried at all about him in this landing spot in particular with the Bears offense. It's just going to be electric for fantasy football. At the number 2 overall pick, when I'm picking, I'm going to be looking towards the first overall NFL draft pick, and I'm going to be selecting Cam Ward. It is Superflex. I think this is definitely the right pick in Superflex leagues. I'm very happy with Cam Ward as the top quarterback prospect in this class. He set himself apart from all the other quarterbacks in this class. In this draft prospect, it looked for a little while that it was going to be close between Cam Ward and Shedeur. It doesn't look close anymore. Cam Ward is deserving of the first overall pick in the NFL draft. He is an electric athlete. He's got a huge arm. He has the legs to go with it. I think Tennessee can build around him, and I'm going to have some faith that Cam Ward is going to be able to lead my fantasy football teams. If you can get him as the second overall pick in your fantasy drafts, I think you're honestly getting a steal there, because the number 1 overall pick as a quarterback and NFL drafts usually should be the first overall pick in Superflex drafts.
Yeah, I personally would not have gone with Cam Ward at that pick, but you also can't go wrong. Look, I'll say this. Cam Ward, he's the only pretty much guaranteed player that we know is going to end up in this landing spot out of all the players that we talk about today. So I like Tennessee. Don't love the receiving situation they have over there. All they have is Calvin Ridley, and him with, you could argue Tyjae Spears out of the backfield is also a solid option, but I'd like to see what they can add for Ward in the second round. I expect them to take a shot on a guy like Luther Burden or Emeka Ibuka, or maybe pair him up with his teammate Xavier Restrepo or his former teammate Kyle Williams. So I like the pick. It's safe, but I personally would have taken Omari and Hampton, who got drafted to the Denver Broncos. He is the 1B in this class in my eyes to the Ashton Jeanty 1A. elite running back that can do everything on the field. He goes into a Sean Payton offense that is going to rely heavily on the run game. The Denver O-line has been unbelievable the past season, and I think they're expected to be great again. And the Broncos really haven't invested as much into their pass game. Obviously, with Bo Nix, he's going to be leading that, but it's going to be more of a run-heavy offense if they're able to land such a talented back with Hampton. And when you add the first-round draft capital onto that, you can't I just can't see myself taking a receiver higher than him, even with McMillan going in the top 10 and Golden going in the top 12. I just think that the running back value with how kind of weak I would say the dynasty landscape for running backs is, you just have to take Hampton here at number 3.
I know you're a big proponent of Hampton and especially in this landing spot. Now, the Broncos offensive line, they're really good at pass blocking, but they struggle in the run blocking last year. They had some really big struggles, and I'm not the biggest fan of a running back being taken this high over some really high end wide receivers in this draft class because of the fact that Hampton is going to be spelled by Jaleel McLaughlin and Audric Estime. I am confident that Audric Estime is Sean Payton's guy, and he will be used. Now, Hampton will still be the primary running back, but I don't think it's going to be a full-fledged Hampton all balls to the wall for this Broncos team. I think they're going to use other running backs. I think they're going to get them all involved like they had with Javonte, Audric Estime, and Jaleel. Hampton's really good. He's a fluid running back. He's a really good pass catcher. I have some concerns about his vision. His offensive line at North Carolina was really, really good. They were a very credible offensive line, opening up some incredible holes. I was a little worried about his vision, but I'm really excited for him at the next level. I think when I'm looking at this pick at 4th overall, I am getting really excited about Teteroa McMillan going inside the top 10. If he's able to get some really high-end draft capital and go top 10, I don't care what team it is. Number 9 to the Saints, I think is going to be an awesome opportunity where he can evolve to be a wide receiver 1 over Chris Olave. I think pairing him with a Chris Olave is going to do wonders for Teteroa to be able to pull away some attention from him. I think Teteroa is an incredible wide receiver out of Arizona. I really view him highly. I think that a lot of people are starting to not like Teteroa as much compared to other wide receiver prospects that we've seen in previous years. I mean, he's no Malik Neighbors. He's no Marvin Harrison Jr. He's no Romo Dunze, but I do really think he is right up there next as one of those credible wide receivers. I'll be taking him here at 4th overall.
Yeah, I mean, you can't go wrong with McMillan. He was one of the 2 guys I'd be considering for this pick, but again, I don't know if I would have taken him here just because I don't know what that situation is going to look like early on in his career. And I also don't like McMillan as much as others. He's actually my wide receiver 3 in this class in terms of my scouting so far. So I don't love the situation with him going to the Saints just with all the unknowns going on. But I did draft him to the Saints in my mock draft because I like the combination of him and Olave and Shaheed and how those 3 kind of play styles work together to build a good receiving core. So I do like the situation a little bit. I just need to see what they're going to do at the quarterback position and kind of understand who he's going to be rocking with long term. But moving on now to 5th overall, this is a really tough pick. You got a lot of great players still on the board, but I'm going to go with Travion Henderson here, who gets drafted to the Washington Commanders in the 1st round. Again, another running back who I loved when I scouted him. The biggest thing about Henderson is the pass blocking to me, which means he's going to be a reliable player. He's going to be kept on the field in all downs. You can't take him off. He had 0 fumbles in college as well. So he's just going to be a guy that can go out there and not only be consistent, but he can break big plays, which is exactly what they're missing in their current running back room with Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler. You have Robinson entering a contract year. Eckler's entering a contract year. It makes it easy. They get Travion Henderson with that 1st round draft capital and in a Jaden Daniels led offense that is going to be a ton of points scored every single week. Henderson is the best pick here. I think you could argue a couple other guys that also landed in good situations in the 1st round, but with him being by far the best running back on the board, and I think close to Hampton in this range, I'm easily taking him here at 5.
I do really like this pick that you took him because if Henderson is able to get this first round draft capital with his home run
Mhm.
hitting ability, his pass catching upside, he's going to be on the field all the time because of he's the best pass blocking running back in this whole class. I love him on the Commanders, especially if the Commanders are going to load up their offense. Like it's already incredible with Jaden Daniels. This could be a nightmare for fantasy football if Travion Henderson lands in Washington. I don't think you're going to be expecting who I'm going to take next because at the 6th overall pick, I'm going to be taking Jackson Dart to the Cleveland Browns, who went 33rd overall in our mock draft. I am a huge Jackson Dart supporter. He is my quarterback 2 in this draft class. I think that Jackson Dart is going to end up going 7th overall to the New York Jets, but I'm really excited for Jackson Dart at the next level. I think he projects really well analytically. I think he brings all the skills to the table. He played in the SEC. I think he's got the legs to be able to bring some fantasy football upside in Cleveland. I think this is a great opportunity where he can be given the role and run with it. They don't have another quarterback there. I think this is the only other quarterback that's I really like seeing in fantasy football in this draft class other than Cam Ward. Because of that, I'm confident in taking him inside the top 6 right here with how this draft plays out.
I like the rushing upside a lot. Especially with him in comparison to Shador, who's the other best quarterback on the board. It's just way too early for me to take Dart, just with how poor that Cleveland Browns organization looks right now.
They've
And
got good
also, I
wide
don't believe,
receivers. It's not too bad. The offensive line is okay too.
I just don't believe in Dart as a player to be taking him over some of the guys that are still on the board.
I know who you're gonna pick next. So go ahead.
We'll see if you know, but I will, with my next pick, be taking my wide receiver 1 in this class in Matthew Golden, who gets drafted to the Dallas Cowboys at number 12. I think that definitely go watch my film review on Matthew Golden. I think you will understand why I believe he could be the wide receiver 1 in this class, or he is the wide receiver 1 in this class. And him going to the Cowboys, he's going to land as that wide receiver 2 as a complement to CeeDee Lamb. I think the two of them play style wise are going to work out very well. You have Golden on the outside. He's going to be the burner. He's going to be able to do everything over the field. And then you have CeeDee Lamb, who's obviously a superstar, can do everything as well. But giving a really elite outside speed option for Dak Prescott in this offense is going to elevate this Cowboys offense to score a lot more touchdowns than in previous years. And I think with this Golden pick, you have to understand that it is possible if the Cowboys go out there and draft a running back instead of a receiver. Maybe they go out there and they take Omari and Hampton. But in this case, in this hypothetical mock draft, Golden goes and he gets that top 12 draft capital with being able to have the traits to be a 3-level receiver that runs a 4.29. I'm going to take that chance on him, especially at the 1.7 here, considering that, Jackson Dart just went above him at the 1.6.
Yeah, currently Matthew Golden is my wide receiver 5, and I'm not the biggest fan of Matt Golden. I can see why you like him. You guys got the same name. In this case, if this draft fell out this way, I would have to take Matt Golden over the other wide receivers in this class. But at my pick right here, I'm gonna go with the guy who the Tennessee Titans pair with Cameron Ward, and I'm going to take Emeka Egbuka, a smooth wide receiver. The way that I see it is if Egbuka lands with Cam Ward in the Titans in this case, he's going to be a PPR machine. I love that. I love him close to the line of scrimmage. I love him as a route runner. Now, in this draft, Luther Burden lands 1 pick after with the Jaguars, which is also a pretty good landing spot. And I do like Luther Burden more than Emeka Egbuka, but I have more faith that Egbuka is able to get more targets, get a higher target share with Cam Ward, a young offense in this Tennessee Titans case. And in this case of this draft, I will be taking Egbuka ahead of him at the pick number 8.
Yeah, I like Ibuka a lot here. Like you said, he's going to be in the slot, and those are the guys that will always generate the most targets. He'll be a great complement to Calvin Ridley going on the inside, and he's going to be somebody that I do genuinely think it matters when you have a rookie quarterback and a rookie wide receiver coming in together because they're
Totally.
first and second round pick. These are the guys that know they're going to be starting the next generation of the Titans right here. And that's going to be true for any receiver that the Titans draft if they do go receiver in the second round, because having a guy with Cam Ward to learn the offense with him and to, again, be in that same rookie class, I think is huge. And the play style fits really well. At pick 9, I think I'm going to go arguably a guy that you could take as high as you want, just because of his skill set and how good he could be. But that's Tyler Warren going to the LA Chargers at pick 22. A lot of people have Tyler Warren going early first round. I've seen him as high as 5 to the Jaguars. There are some people that think he could go 7 to the Jets. He could go to the Bears at 10. There's a lot of different scenarios, but in this scenario, he does fall all the way to the Chargers at 22. Jim Harbaugh loves his tight ends. He's going to be used as a vertical threat. Now, I don't love, him and Ladd as a combination over the middle of the field. Like, I think they both can do very similar things. And I would like to see the Chargers find a better replacement for, an outside receiver. But Warren is a unicorn of a player. He's going to be able to do everything on the field. He reminds me of George Kittle when I watch him. Big guy, can do everything, run over people. He has sure hands. He can route run. He can beat zone. He can basically do everything. And I think similar to, not the same type of player as Bowers, but it's the same thing where he's going to be a tight end that's going to be a can't miss prospect, and somebody in the mid to late first round is going to get a great player just because other people want to take other positions.
Yeah, we haven't done a mock draft yet together, but I kind of knew how this was going to play out because we have been disagreeing a lot so far on this rookie class. Last year, we were on the same page. This year, it's a little bit like complete polar opposites because I am not the biggest Warren fan. Warren is a tenacious guy, and he's a well-rounded tight end that can do everything. But I'm not confident that he can do one thing well enough to provide a lot of fantasy value at the next level. And so when we look at Warren and how his fantasy value translates, I'm a little nervous about it. Now, this is a really good landing spot for him.
Wait, what can he do? What can he not do? Because he
No, he
produced
can do
like
everything.
crazy
That's
at Penn
exactly what I'm
State.
saying. He's super well-rounded, but I don't think he can do one thing like super special. I don't think he's as good of a route runner as Kyle Pitts and Brock Bowers was and all
Oh,
these elite rookie tight ends. I think that Tyler Warren can be used in a lot of different ways at the next level. I think he can catch, he can block, he can go in the backfield. Penn State used him everywhere. But I'm not confident enough that he's a good enough athlete, that he's a good enough receiving prospect to bring you some immense fantasy football value. And I think we're going to see Tyler Warren disappoint fantasy owners. I don't
dude,
think he'll be a bad football
talking
player.
about Kyle Pitts route running in comparison, anyone has better route running than Kyle
Come
Pitts.
on.
I can
Okay.
promise you that.
As we're just talking about prospects right now coming out, but that's also, I don't think that's true. I think Tyler Warren is slower than Kyle Pitts, and
Well,
he
that's
just,
probably true.
right. I mean, he just ain't got it like that. But at my pick next at 110, I'm looking at number 37th overall in this draft, Quinshawn Judkins, who goes to the Raiders. I really like this pick for the Raiders. If they're able to land a Quinshawn Judkins, pair him up with Geno Smith, a veteran quarterback, this team might be a lot better than people think it's going to be. And it does seem like if they draft a Quinshawn here, they could be using him for quite a while on the Las Vegas Raiders. He's a big bruising running back, but he also has speed and pass catching upside with him as well. I'm really excited to see. I mean, he had some of the best carries in the SEC before transferring to Ohio State, where then his role was reduced to be a tandem running back with Travion Henderson. And I don't think his sparkle did not go out at all. I think they both shined in that offense, and I think people are kind of looking at him as secondary to Travion, but I don't think that's necessary at all. And I think he'll be an incredible athlete out there for the Las Vegas Raiders.
Yeah, I agree. I love this pick right here. Quinshawn's a guy that I could argue if you need a running back, you could take him as soon as you want after Travion in this draft class, just because he could be used as a bowling ball in this Raiders offense.
Mhm.
This could be their new Josh Jacobs that they're giving 20 to 25 carries a game. Pete Carroll in the past, what worked for him? Marshawn Lynch. You get your own little Marshawn Lynch in Judkins who can take a big workload and also provide some upside in the pass catching game as well. So I think with that early second round draft capital and him being the clear best running back on the board right now in my eyes, I do like this Judkins pick. I'm going to go with the guy that you mentioned earlier here at pick 11, and that's Luther Burden to the Jaguars. Right now, the Jaguars have Brian Thomas Jr. as their alpha wide receiver 1. They let go of Evan Ingram. They traded Christian Kirk. So who's going to fill that wide receiver 2 role? bring in Luther Burden here, who can be an absolute chess piece. My wide receiver 2 in this class, ahead of guys like McMillan and Abuka. I think that he's going to do really good things in this Jaguars offense. He can play in the slot. They can use him on the other side of Brian Thomas. Can put him in a lot of different plays, and I think that's what Liam Cohen is going to like about him, is that he can utilize him in a lot of different ways. His route running is going to be great, and I think this is a guy that played in the SEC, and he might not have had the best year this past year, but Brady Cook went down as quarterback for a decent amount of games, and the year before, you got to look at that production. Not every single player has great years every single year of college. You got to look a little bit deeper, and I think Burden's one of those guys where people are going to overlook his talent because of what happened last year at Mizzou. But I love the landing spot here, and I think with the high early second round draft capital, this is a home run pick at 11th overall.
Yeah, Luther Burden is my wide receiver 3 if we're including Travis Hunter as a wide receiver. I think Luther Burden is an incredible athlete. He can be amazing for fantasy football because of what he brings with his after the catch ability. He's going to bring you those yards. He's going to catch the ball in shallow ways. They're going to use him all over the field in the next level of the NFL. And I'm really excited what he can bring to the next level. I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up bringing more value to fantasy owners and being a total value in these rookie drafts than compared to the other players. And I just said his name, and I think we've been waiting a little bit too long. It's a tough player to take off the board because we don't know what he's going to bring to the next level. We don't know where he's going to play, but he's got to go in the first round. And if he goes number 3 to the New York Giants to pair with Malik Neighbors, they need other wide receiver help. They only have Malik Neighbors and Darius Slayton. I'm going to be taking Travis Hunter to be playing wide receiver for the New York Giants at the 12. If you're picking 12th overall in your dynasty leagues, you already won. You have a pretty good team usually. You can swing for the fences. Go and get yourself a Travis Hunter.
Okay, I like that you added in the 12th overall part, because I do agree with that, and the fact that if you are set, Hunter is a really good player to take a shot on. But with the other players on the board, I just can't take him over guys like Burden or Judkins, these guys that are great prospects.
I didn't take him over Burden or Judkins.
I
took
know.
him
I'm just
after.
justifying the fact of why he's going this late, because I agree he's a really
Right.
polarizing player. You could argue him being the wide receiver 1 in this class, and then
Oh, totally. If he's playing full wide receiver, he would have gone 2nd or 3rd overall in this draft.
Sure, but I also will say I don't think that Hunter is the best receiving prospect that we've seen in a while. Like, I
Ooh.
don't think he's even close to as good of a prospect as like Jamar Chase or like
Oh,
Lamb.
no, yeah,
Right,
you're
but that's
right.
what I'm
But
saying.
I
Like,
do think he's like wide receiver 1 though.
yeah, I agree. I do think he is the best receiver in this class if you count him as a full-time receiver. But I'm looking at this Giants team, and you have Malik Neighbors, and you have Darius Slayton, who they just extended, and you're forgetting they do have Wan'Dale Robinson, who they like a lot. He is a good slot receiver for them. I just think if he does get drafted to the Giants here, they are going to use him as a mostly full-time corner. He definitely will get snaps on offense, but I just don't think it's going to be enough to really warrant good enough fantasy production, especially not to take him over again, all these guys that we just took ahead of him. So I think that this is a proper place for him, just seeing where he gets drafted. If he goes to like the Browns or if he goes to the Patriots, it changes. It changes with any team
Yeah,
he's
that's
drafted
fun.
to. But if he goes to the Giants, I'm not as confident about what he's going to do on the offensive side of the ball. But a guy whose situation I do like in this draft that has fallen a little far, Shador Sanders, who goes 21st overall to the Pittsburgh Steelers. First round quarterback. He's most likely going to start next year, maybe this year, depending on what happens with the Aaron Rodgers situation. If Rodgers gets signed to the Steelers on a 1-year deal, I think that's great for Shador. He can sit behind Rodgers. He can learn from him. Obviously they're not at all in seeming like similar personalities, and that would be a very interesting scenario to see how the two of them kind of interact with two of kind of the biggest personalities we've seen so far throughout free agency. But having the first round draft capital and going to the Steelers, where you have a great coach in Mike Tomlin, they just added DK Metcalf. You have George Pickens. You have Pat Freiermuth. So I think you got to take Shador Sanders here, knowing it's a super flex league, and he's definitely the best quarterback on the board. The lack of rushing is somewhat concerning and definitely why he's falling to the second round here, but I still think you got to take him at this point in the draft.
I think this is a fine spot for Shador. I think there's one more guy that I would have taken before Shador, and I'm honestly surprised that he fell this far because I think the way that I see the tight end position in this class is that these two guys are closer together than fantasy owners have been thinking about things in this draft class, where if Tyler Warren's going to go 1-9, like you picked him, Colston Loveland should be going right there off his back. Now, I would have taken Judkins and Burden over Warren, and then be able to put Warren and Colston Loveland closer together. But here at the 2-2, I'm comfortable taking Colston Loveland, who goes 26th overall to the Los Angeles Rams. This is an awesome landing spot to play with a veteran quarterback in Matthew Stafford. Learn from the best. Cooper Kupp is now gone. You've got Puka Nacua there. There's a bunch of vacated targets that have to go someone's way. And if they're not going to take another wide receiver because they've got Devontae Adams there now, I'm really excited for Colston Loveland to be able to dominate potentially down the line in this Rams offense. Definitely could be a touchdown machine there if teams are looking to cover Devontae Adams heavily. But I'm really excited if Colston Loveland does go in the first round to the Los Angeles Rams.
No, I agree. I honestly wish I took him over Shedeur Sanders, and I think if I was actually in this draft, that I would take Colston Loveland over Shedeur, and maybe even higher, like you said, especially because the Rams are a great situation. You have a great coach, Sean McVay, and you get him in the first round, and he joins this offense with Puka Nacua and Devontae, where in 1 to 2 years, or most likely 2 years, Devontae is going to be out of the picture, and then it becomes Loveland as the option 2 to Puka Nacua. So who knows how much longer Stafford's going to stay, but I agree. Loveland is also a great prospect. And while I do think Warren's better, I also think Loveland is a first round talent. So I like the pick here. At the 2-3 here, I think this is, where the draft starts to fall off a little bit, but I think there is a clear player where you look at the position and the other running backs that are on the board.
Yeah.
And then the draft capital of being a guy that gets drafted in the second round here, but I'm going to go with Caleb Johnson to the Houston Texans. Definitely the right pick here. He lands in a Houston offense that had a down year last year and will most likely this year in the run game also have another down year, considering their O-line really hasn't improved. But in the long term, their O-line is not going to stay awful forever. They are going to keep building it. And that's good for Caleb Johnson because this year he's most likely not going to play very much. Joe Mixon is still there. He's coming into the second year of his 3-year deal, and Joe Mixon is going to have majority of the touches. Now, it is likely, I think, that Joe Mixon might go down at some point in the season and miss a few weeks, and Caleb Johnson might be able to fill his shoes for those weeks or even split the load by the second half of the season. But I think Caleb Johnson, he's a great player. I talked about him in my film breakdown. I think his upside is limited, but he is a guy that can take a big workload, and he could fill the shoes in a Texans offense that 2 to 3 years down the line could be scoring a lot of touchdowns, and he could be the lead back. So I think in the second round, this is a great pick.
Yeah, I'm honestly going to go right off your back here. And 2-4, I'm going to take Dylan Sampson, who goes 66th overall to the Kansas City Chiefs. I think if the Chiefs are willing to spend a day 2 draft capital on a running back, I'm going to be buying that player. And you're going to have to take him this early in the draft if that's going to be the case. I'm happy with Dylan Sampson as a prospect. I think he's going to be a decent running back in the NFL level. Now, coming out of Tennessee, it did look a little bit easy for him. He faced a lot of light boxes because that Tennessee offense is high flying, but I'm excited to see it if the Chiefs draft a running back. They have other running backs on their roster, but I'm not too happy with the likes of Isaiah Pacheco, Elijah Mitchell, and Kareem Hunt. So if they're willing to spend some capital to fill that draft room up or to fill that locker room up in their running back core, I think it means that they're going to want to give him the ball, and I'm going to be taking Sampson right there.
Yep, I like the Sampson pick. Again, he's the clear best running back on the board, lands in a great situation with the Chiefs where there is a legit chance for him to step into that RB1 role, even by the second half of the season, because there's just not a clear guy that really blows you away. We talked about last year with Pacheco. He's not that great of a player. We know what Kareem Hunt can bring to the table. They don't have a guy that can be very consistent in this offense, and Sampson can provide a little bit more explosiveness than they currently have, which I think makes him a great pick here, again, in the mid to early second round. With this next pick, I was really between two guys, but I think I'm going to go with a wide receiver that's been getting a lot of hype recently, and that's Kyle Williams going to the Patriots here in the early third round at pick 69. I think that, there's other players that you could have taken here, but I really like what Williams was able to do at Washington State, being the wide receiver 1. He played with Cam Ward last year, had a really good season as well. He's a guy that can do everything. His yak ability is off the charts. I'm actually going to be doing a fantasy film breakdown on him very soon, and I'm very excited to watch that in-depth film on him and see if he is able to bring what he can do in those highlights to a consistent level in the NFL. And I think when you pair that to the Patriots here with a young stud quarterback in Drake May, and the only other, dominant receiver on the roster is Stephon Diggs right now, I think pairing Kyle Williams as, the top option for them in this draft class right now, it means that the opportunity is going to be there. He just has to take it.
Yeah, we're definitely going to have a few wide receivers go off the board within these next few picks. But I'm not going to lie. I think you made the wrong choice. I think you like it, Kyle Williams, but it's a pretty good landing spot. But I do think there are some wide receivers here who even landed in better landing spots still that went earlier in the draft. And with this pick at 57, I'm going to be taking at the 2-6. I'm going to be taking the guy who went 57th overall, Trey Harris, to the Carolina Panthers, wide receiver out of Ole Miss. I am really, really excited about Trey Harris at the next level. I think he'll be able to do a lot in the NFL, going up and getting the ball, potentially being Bryce Young's wide receiver one. I think Bryce Young is developing really well in the NFL now, and I'm really excited to see him break out this season. I do think the Carolina Panthers are going to surprise people, and I think Trey Harris is worthy of going higher in the NFL draft and higher in your rookie draft. So I think this might be a little bit of a value for him here.
Yeah, I agree. Trey Harris is a good player, and I think the stat that stuck out to everybody was him being first in the class in yards per route run, which is typically a statistic that if you are the top in your class, the last few years, the guys who have been leading that have turned into great players in the NFL. I just worry about Harris's athleticism and whether or not it's going to be able to translate to the NFL. But like you said, it's a really good opportunity for him to come in and be that wide receiver one for Bryce Young. That could be Xavier Legette, could be maybe Jalen Coker. There's a lot of okay players on that offense, so there is a lot of opportunity, which I like for Trey Harris. He was actually not the guy, though, that I was considering, and so I'm going to take that other guy that I was looking at my last pick, and that's going to be Jalen Milroe, who I actually do not like at all as an NFL prospect, but
if
he
he
goes
here
50th overall to the Seattle Seahawks, so he comes off as the fourth quarterback off the board. We all know what he can do on the ground. He ran a 4.37. He's going to come into the league as basically a top 3 rushing quarterback already. And as much as I don't like Milroe because of how much he reminds me of a player like Justin Fields and what we've seen from Fields in terms of actual success in the NFL, I don't think Milroe will be very good. But what he can be is he can be a quarterback that can score a lot of fantasy points with his legs. He might go out there and only throw for 150 yards and, a touchdown. But if he can also get you 60 rushing yards and a touchdown, every other game or so, that's going to produce into a pretty high-end quarterback 2 or low-end quarterback 1. And he goes into a situation in Seattle where you have Sam Darnold, who's a good quarterback, but he is technically only on really a 1-year deal. So if they like what they see out of Milroe after year 1, they can cut ties with Darnold and start Milroe, or same thing after year 2. So I like Milroe here with the rushing upside, and I like the situation he lands in. So I think he's fallen a little bit too far for the upside he can provide as a fantasy option.
Yeah, there's totally a world where Jalen Milroe falls into the starting role similarly to how Jalen Hurts did as a second round pick and becomes extremely fantasy relevant. I also don't really like Jalen Milroe, but if he's going to go 50th overall to the Seattle Seahawks, where they're looking like they could need a quarterback, and if Sam Darnold isn't the guy, then he has to go early in fantasy drafts. This is a value at this point for getting a potential starting quarterback. Now, the worry is that Jalen Milroe could be a consistent backup in the NFL and just continually a backup quarterback, never gets a starting role, and you could burn this pick on fire. But it's a second round pick. At this point, it's probably worth the upside. At the 2-8, I'm going to be taking who went 51st overall to the Denver Broncos, Jalen Noel out of Iowa State, a speed guy, a speedy wide receiver. They had 2 really good wide receivers at Iowa State with Jaden Higgins, who goes 67th overall to the Browns in this, but I'm going to be taking the guy who goes earlier in the draft. It does worry me a little bit with comparisons to Marvin Mims already being on the Denver Broncos, but I think if Jalen Noel is able to assert himself as a slot wide receiver for this team, with Cortland Sutton on the outside and Marvin Mims also potentially on the other outside. If he's able to get himself on the field and earn some snaps, it could be a really good fantasy option. Although this one is a pick where I do get a little bit worried that he might not see the field as much as fantasy managers would hope.
I think it's tough because his situation right now with the players that are on the board, him having the draft capital of a top, 50 pick is going to take a lot more when he's the only player that's left in the second round that we haven't drafted yet.
Mhm.
So just taking the draft capital, at some point, you also have to look at what NFL scouts and what GMs believe, because you might be really high on a player, but if he gets drafted in the fourth round, I'm not saying he can't be good, but there's clearly a reason why a lot of people passed on him. So I think, keeping draft capital in mind is important. And at this next pick at the 2-9, again, there's a lot of really good players on the board still that I like, but I'm going to go with a
Mhm.
receiver that I have loved this entire
Ooh.
process, and just watching him kill Syracuse and kill a bunch of other teams is Alec Manor from Stanford, who gets drafted in the third round here to the Houston Texans. I think it's a great pick for them. There's a lot of opportunity on this Texans offense. Nico Collins is easily the alpha wide receiver one in this offense, but with Tank Dell out for the entire season, we really don't know what he's going to look like when he comes back from injury. He basically broke his entire leg, and this is a guy that was already extremely small. So we don't know what he's going to come out as and if he's going to come back to full strength. But with him, and you have Christian Kirk, who will probably come in into the slot, I think Manor can fill that other side on the outside. And with a pass heavy offense with CJ Stroud, who's an absolute gunslinger, I think Manor can be really good. He's consistent, big body receiver. He dogged on Travis Hunter in 2 years ago, not this past year, but the year before. Go watch the Stanford Colorado game. He destroyed Travis Hunter, who again is a top 3 player in this class. So he shows out when, they're good corners covering him. And I think he's a good pick here in the second round.
I don't think it's a bad pick because with Ellick, he could be the wide receiver 3, the third option, though, with Christian Kirk and Nico Collins already being there. Honestly, I think we missed a guy that I probably would have taken over Jalen Noel and maybe over Jalen Milrow, along with obviously Ellick Ionamo. How do you say his last name?
Manor.
Ayamanor. Yeah.
Manor.
But I'm going to be taking Cameron Scatabo, who went 76 to the Dallas Cowboys. The running back who lands with the Cowboys is going to be very fantasy relevant potentially. They're going to be competing with Javonte Williams, but in this case, Cam Scatabo, who's a bruising running back, a little bit worried about his speed at the next level, but that's not going to be how he plays his game. He's going to be going out there trying to get 8 to 12-yard gains over and over again. He is a dog, relevant at every level of his career. He played throughout a long time until he eventually went to Arizona State, where he dominated. If he gets third round draft capital, I'm pretty excited for him in the Dallas Cowboys slot.
Yeah, this is kind of I would say, underrated draft situation that we really didn't put together here in the third round, because the Cowboys don't have a stud running back, and Cam Scatabo coming out of Arizona State, he did everything for them. It's just whether or not he's going to be able to do that at the same level in the NFL, and whether or not he's just able to kind of dog on those college players, or it will actually translate. So I think, again, when you're at the mid to late second round, getting a potential Dallas Cowboys starting running back is terrific value. And I think, as we're closing on in the last 2 picks of this mock draft, there's a lot of good players up. You could
Oh,
go
there's so
with a
many.
guy like Devin Neal, who gets drafted in the third round to the New England Patriots, I think is a guy that I'm considering. But I think the guy that I like a little bit more, just with the second round draft capital, is Mason Taylor getting drafted to the Philadelphia
No.
Eagles at the last pick of the second round. I think Mason Taylor is an absolute stud tight end from LSU. I would love for the Bears to
Oh.
actually be in on him as our backup tight end. But my vision here for Mason Taylor is that this means that Dallas Goedert gets traded. He has been rumored to be getting shopped this entire offseason. I think they potentially either get rid of Goedert right away, or Goddard stays for one more year. Taylor stands behind him, and then he enters as the starting tight end in this Eagles offense. And I think he can just be a stud and a very underrated player for a long time.
No, guys, don't draft this guy. I'm telling you, he's a blocking tight end, bro. He's not going to be relevant in fantasy. I'm not a fan. I like Harold Fannin Jr. more. I like Elijah Arroyo more, especially in these landing spots where Harold Fannin goes 73rd to the Jets, and Elijah Arroyo goes 93rd to the New Orleans Saints. I didn't think you were going to take Mason Taylor, bro, but you did. Whatever. I don't know
I
about
like
that.
Mason Taylor. What do you want me to say?
You
I
put
like
me in.
Mason Taylor.
That's fine. I don't think he's going to be very good at fantasy football. He might be a good NFL player, but I think the Eagles wouldn't even trade Dallas Goedert if they took him here. I think they would just use both of them
For 1
equally.
year, I
And
think it's possible, but I think Taylor steps into that role a year too.
maybe I just think it'd be insane to take a guy like Mason Taylor, who's basically a third round pick tight end, over the likes of like Jaden Higgins, who goes 67 to the Browns here. We've still got Harold Fannin, who goes 73rd to the Jets. We got Devin Neal, who you mentioned, who goes 77 to the Patriots. Jalen Royals, who I really like out of Utah State, who goes 78th to the Arizona Cardinals. Isaiah Bond, who goes 82 to the Seattle Seahawks. I think all of these guys I would still be looking at before taking these tight ends, especially Mason Taylor.
The tight end position in Dynasty is weak. If I think I can get a good guy in the late second round, I'm going to be willing to pull the trigger. Assuming that you only have your set of picks, you don't know when the next tight end is going to come up. Again, I think you could argue that Harold Fannin should get drafted over him, and maybe Elijah Arroyo as well. But personally, I like Taylor. I like the second round draft capital here, and I think that he can step into a starting role and be very solid in this offense.
That's fair. That's fair. I definitely get it. To round out this draft, the other players that I'm considering: 87th overall, Green Bay Packers, Jack Besh, who had a really good Senior Bowl. We've got Tyler Shaw, who's a quarterback out of Louisville, who goes 98th to the Miami Dolphins. Kyle McCord, who goes to the LA Rams from Syracuse. That looks
Yeah.
pretty enticing, honestly, because Matthew Stafford might be out the door eventually. But I think I'm going to be taking the guy that I think personally is the best wide receiver available and also has the best landing spot. And I think that's Jalen Royals, 78th overall to the Arizona Cardinals. It's tough between Jaden Higgins, because Jaden Higgins is a really good wide receiver too, but I'm not such a fan of the landing spot because they have Jerry Jeudy and Cedric Tillman there. I like Jalen Royals out there to potentially be the wide receiver 2 with Marvin Harrison Jr., pair him with our boy Kyler, and that's who I'm going to be taking right here, Jalen Royals, to finish out our second round.
Yeah, and this was definitely an interesting mock draft. And I think obviously with this mock, this is my mock draft, and I'm sure that I had a little bit of bias when it came to some of the situations with these players, and it might not end up this way, and it definitely will not end up exactly this way. But I think the bottom line is, with this draft, there is a ton of talent, and I think a lot of these prospects really even out in terms of the skill level, and you can kind of go, apples and oranges, rank them however you want in terms of a lot of ranges of players. But I do think once we actually see the NFL draft, it is really going to make it a lot easier for us to mock these guys. So we definitely hope that everybody enjoyed this mock draft episode. Again, make sure to follow us on all of our social medias at Leatherbrains, and especially make sure to like and subscribe on our YouTube channel. Check out all of our recent fantasy film breakdowns along with the rest of our content. We really hope you enjoy this episode. Next week, we will be doing the same thing. Be doing another mock draft based off the mock that Charlie does on Mock Draft Monday, upcoming the next Monday. So we really hope that everybody enjoyed. We'll see you next time, and we're out.
3, 2, 1.
Got a blast!
Thanks for checking out the Fantasy Brains. Don't miss next week's episode, Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern. See you next week, Brainiacs.